The Shining movie ends by zooming in an old black and white photo showing Jack at a party in 1921. The photo belongs to a collection of 21 photographs located on a wall of the corridor that provides access to the ballroom that is also known as the Gold Room, according to the large sign close to the entry door. The scene begins with a shot taken from the main lobby of the hotel. As the camera zooms in, we can see the arrangement of photos disposed in a layout of 3 rows and 7 columns, totaling 21 pictures. 21 is also the year that appears on the text of the photo. On top of these photos stands a wall light with 2 electric candles. The numbers 2, 3, and 7 evoke unconsciously room 237. We will come back to this later. After a brief pause, the zoom resumes and the camera shows a close-up of the photo at the very center of the arrangement of photos. This picture shows a crowded place full of people dressed in fancy clothes who are looking straight at the camera. The appearance and expressions of these people are consistent with the title of the photo, a 4th of July party. More precisely, a ball that took place in 1921, almost 50 to 60 years before the action of the movie. On the lower tier of the photo, we see on the foreground a smiling Jack wearing a tuxedo and a bow tie. He poses in an unusual way, his right arm up and his left arm extended as if he was dancing. His smile and relaxed attitude contrast with the events that just happened and that led to his death. As already noted by several analysts, this attitude is the pose of the devil in the tarot cards. Above him stands the character with a stern look and the very same mustache that is so typical of Adolf Hitler. The date, July 1921, also evokes Adolf Hitler, as this is when he was appointed leader of the Nazi Party. The objective of these subliminal clues is to suggest a dissonance, a conflict with the atmosphere of joy that emerges from the photo. On the surface, it looks like a party where people have fun, but these are deceptive appearances. What we see is fake. In this very same photo, we see Jack holding something by his thumb in the right palm of his hand. But it is difficult to identify what it is precisely, as nothing exists in the movie that mentions this item. It looks like a folded piece of paper, but we will never know more. What is relevant here is the act of hiding something, consistent with the deceptive appearance. Another explanation is that the hand of Jack shows the number 4 in a typical way. 4, not 5. Showing your palm with 5 fingers is a classical Jewish way for repelling the evil eye. That's what Jack can't do. He is not able to fight against the curse. After a pause, the camera zooms in an extreme close-up of Jack, and we can see his torso and his head. Then the camera moves down, showing the lower part of Jack's torso, and we can read the text of the photo. Overlook Hotel, July 4th Ball, 1921. This anachronism suggests that Jack is a kind of ghost who was living in the 20s and has since been resuscitated. As Delbert Grady told him during their encounter in the toilets, "You have always been the caretaker." "I know, sir. I've always been here." The term overlook has several meanings. One sense of overlook is to look on with the evil eye, a synonym of bewitch. Again, This is consistent with the suggestive clues scattered across the photo, but it adds something else. Overlook is like a curse, something that causes harm and misfortune over time. In this photo alone, we can see the three meanings of the term shining. First, shining is a bright, flamboyant quality that radiates from Jack. His outward appearance is fancy, elegant, attractive, cool, and seductive. It is an idealized version of Jack, the authority figure. But the shining is also a cover for a dark feature hidden beneath the deceptive appearance. It conceals an evil impulse, a perversity, and a psychological hold. These two opposite features of the shining create a double bind that prevents Danny from completely loving or hating his father. They coalesce into a third meaning that is the evil eye, which is a kind of curse, where the curse is given in the form of a malevolent glare, an over-enthusiastic compliment that causes harm to a victim without her being aware of it. The final zoom and close-up of Jack's photo occurs right after the death of Jack in the maze. A death that was caused by the ingenious trap set up by Danny, who attracted his violent father into the maze in order to get him lost. In the final shot of the scene, we can see Jack in the daylight, completely frozen, in a vivid expression of madness. His eyes moved upward, his mouth exposing a harsh vindictive grin. He looks as if he has been frozen almost instantly. Instantaneous freezing is the opposite of what usually happens when people are freezing to death. The fatal effect of low temperatures on the human body proceeds in steps. First, the victim tends to feel sleepy, then she falls into a coma, and after some time she dies. Here, on the opposite, we see Jack as if he had been frozen in a matter of seconds, in an expression showing a mix of liveliness and death. His eyes are opened, looking upward. His facial expression is full of anger and resentment. We can feel the tension of his muscles under his skin. Jack does not look like dead bodies usually do, especially if their death was caused by coldness. Jack is gone for sure, but he looks like he could come back to life would the temperature increase. He is not precisely a living dead. He is both dead and alive. The picture of frozen Jack is a perfect metaphor for any photographic portrait. Photos capture a moment in time, they fixate snapshots in life, and paradoxically turn in portraits of long since dead protagonists as lively renditions, full of life. They make us feel as if the present that had been captured, fixated at the time of the photo, was there forever. The photo of Party Jack and the static shot of Frozen Jack are two versions of the same idea. They both show a snapshot in time, a fixated, lively expression of Jack as a prisoner of a maze. In one case, it is a vegetal, actual maze. In the other case, it is a symbolic photographic maze. There's a huge outdoor vegetal maze in the movie, but it's not the only one. Indeed, the movie depicts several mazes. Let's have a look at them. First, we have the actual maze outside the hotel, but there's also the hotel and the kitchen. They are identified in the movie through the same pattern. In these places, we see characters moving through corridors, alleys, stairs, or lanes, and turning right or left in unpredictable ways for us. Those are actual mazes. Then, inside the hotel, we can see a scale model maze. It contains the same items as the actual outdoor maze, disposed in the same manner, but on a smaller scale. If we could inflate the scale model maze, it would be the actual maze. There is also an abstract maze that is painted on a sign at the entrance of the outdoor maze. An abstract maze is a representation that depicts in a stylized way the relevant aspects of the model and leaves aside the less important details. Then finally we can see the wall of photos as a symbolic maze. A symbol is something that represents an object or a concept, though it has nothing in common with the object it characterizes. For example, in the Christian culture, doves are symbol of the Holy Spirit, though there is nothing intrinsic in the dove animal that relates it to the Christian concept. The meaning attached to a symbol comes from the outside, from a cultural background, or from a family or personal history. Also, a symbol may express different meanings. For example, a dove could be the symbol of a magician. It all depends on the context. The presence of mazes in the movie, though absent from the novel, conveys a meaning that we can better understand by recalling the Greek myth of King Minos and his labyrinth. According to Greek mythology, King Minos asked the architect Daedalus to build a labyrinth for holding the Minotaur, who was a monstrous creature with the body of a man and the head and tail of a bull. The Minotaur was the offspring of a bull and of Minos' wife, Pasiphae. The creature was a ferocious beast who devoured human beings for subsistence. Minos asked for the creation of the labyrinth in order to restrain the destructive force of the Minotaur. King Minos could have made the Minotaur executed, a solution that would have been more definitive, but for some reason Minos was not able or was not willing to go this far. Or Minos could have imprisoned the Minotaur in a castle with thick walls, but this would probably not have been enough, and the last and only solution he could find was to invent a trick that would prevent the Minotaur from escaping, in spite of his invincible strength. From the Greek myth, it turns out that a labyrinth is an effective solution to make sure that whatever one puts in the labyrinth will stay there forever, that it will be never able to find its path to the exit, that it will never become a threat again, whatever its strength. As such, a maze offers a potent protection, an operative defense mechanism. Therefore, from a symbolic point of view, the maze evokes the unconscious that Freud described as a kind of hidden place in our mind where we store painful desires, memories, or emotions, which power is so destructive that they could impair our ability to live well if they could haunt our mind without restrictions. Freud uses the term repression to name the defense mechanism that sends painful memories to the unconscious. In the movie, Frozen Jack and Shining Jack are both symbols of a repressed traumatic memory. The trauma of Danny's childhood, a story of violent abuse. Like the Minotaur in his labyrinth, Jack's destructive potential has been nullified. It has been vitrified in the ice of the snowy maze and in the transparent, icy foil of the glossy paper. In the unconscious represented by the maze of plants lies the insatiable and dangerous beast. In the symbolic maze formed by the photo on the corridor's wall lies the memory of a happy, attractive, and fancy father who is also a little bit ambivalent. But Danny is not Theseus. He didn't kill Jack. He just found a temporary answer to his problem, a solution that allowed him to escape the place. Jack is not dead. He is still active in some way, and would the circumstances become more propitious, there is a risk that, like the Minotaur, he claims his share of human flesh. The actual and the metaphorical mazes are both marked by a cold environment, which is obvious in the case of the vegetal maze, with the piles of snow and ice. On the photo showing Party Jack, there is neither ice nor any sign of coldness. On the contrary, we can see a palm tree in the background. But here again the cold is metaphorically suggested, first by the photographic process itself, but also by the sign next to the door. As noted by Rob Egger in his brilliant analysis of The Shining, the sign at the entrance of the room may be read as cold room instead of gold room, the letter G being drawn in an ambiguous way that makes it look like a letter C. The ice is the effective solution developed by Danny to neutralize the destructive power of Jack. It was a matter of survival, but this remedy of last resort has a cost: depression. People suffering from depression feel frozen in their actions, in their thoughts, and in their emotions. Ice is a common symbol for depression. Surely, Danny and Wendy got away from the mortal threat, but their journey through the frosty weather and icy roads mean the beginning of their fight against depression. I find that The Shining demonstrates beautifully the understanding of mental disease like depression by psychoanalysis, as opposed to what is theorized by psychiatry. To psychiatry, depression is a physiological disease, the consequence of a defect, something that went wrong in the brain of the affected person. To psychoanalysis, depression comes from an adaptive solution that used to be effective in the past to overcome a problem, but that impairs the ability to live well in the present. Despite the risk of falling into depression, the ending of The Shining is positive. The climax being the successful attempt to lock Jack in the maze of plants. But this is not the first and only one occurrence of such an attempt. First, there's the imprisonment of the evil woman by Jack in room 237. This scene takes place after the aggression of Danny, when an agitated and anxious Wendy asks her husband to check what's in room 237, as Danny has reported the presence of a woman who has assaulted him. Jack is able to escape the rotting old woman and manages to lock her into room 237. But it is ineffective as it does not prevent the ghost from haunting the hotel, and it does not prevent Jack from falling into a murderous madness. Though ineffective, this try anticipates the final success of Denny in the outdoor maze. There is even an analogy in the way Jack escapes the place, walking backward, like the trick Denny used to fool his father in the snow. The second attempt of restraining the problem is performed by Wendy as she locks Jack in the storeroom. It is not a refrigerated room, it only contains products that can stay at normal temperatures. But it probably is designed as a cold room, according to its heavy hermetic door. This time, the locks are much bigger than those of room 237, and the door is a metal reinforced one that offers a more appropriate way for neutralizing Jack. But here again, the door fails to prevent Jack from escaping. This second attempt definitely demonstrates that no door will ever prevent Jack from escaping. He is under the influence of overly powerful forces. Another solution must be found, and it is Denny who will find it by combining a maze and an icy vitrification. The storeroom scene also anticipates the final freezing of Jack in the maze. Kubrick chose an unusual angle when he filmed Jack during his discussion with Wendy. Jack is filmed from beneath, the camera being located at his feet. This angle shows an interesting perspective that highlights the confinement of his situation, which adds more tension as well as a touch of suffocation. Due to the camera angle, his eyes seem to look upward, which is exactly how they appear in the picture where he stands frozen in the maze. Also note the similarity of the expression of the mouth. This analogy of visual elements expresses an analogy of meaning.